I don't know how many times I have to say this. There are no shortcuts to getting rich. And most of the things that are advertised to you as shortcuts are actually shortcuts to losing money, not making it. So follow along with me, and I'm going to walk you through all of the different ways that people sell you on getting rich quick and how none of them actually work. Let's get started on the things that might make you rich, but they'll probably just end up losing you money. So starting with meme stocks, this actually started a few years ago, specifically with GameStop, but there are a whole lot of examples like that of that. SPCE is a very recent one that has garnered a whole lot of attention. There are other things like AMC back in the day. And what makes these stocks so popular is that there are huge internet communities around them, and they often have periods of time where they're extremely low and they go way high and then end up being stable or often going down. Now that this has happened a few times, there are actually a lot of examples of these meme stocks being pushed in a lot of online forums especially. And you'll find people all the time that are telling you, hey, I have found this next stock that's going to have these massive returns, and if you buy it now, then it's going to make you a wealthy person. The reality of the matter is most individual stocks underperform the market. We're talking 80% or more stocks underperform the market. And even the few stocks that do outperform the market usually do so in a pretty modest way. And only very few stocks end up having these huge returns that we see, like in some of these meme stocks. And for however much a lot of people would like to sell you on the idea that they can predict what those next big stocks are, studies have shown that nobody can predict what those next big stocks are. So it might seem like an appealing idea that can make you 10 times as wealthy overnight, but most of the time, this is actually just going to end up with you losing money. Even if you don't lose on absolute terms, you're probably going to lose compared to the market. So when you see meme stocks, avoid it like the plague. The next one, I have written Bitcoin on here, but this is actually just going to encompass crypto as a whole sector. So Ethereum is also on here, Solana is also on here, and then there are literally millions of other small cryptocurrencies that you can use to trade. As a fundamental asset, cryptocurrency has no intrinsic value. When you buy a stock or you buy a bond, there is a company or a government behind that provides real economic value. Crypto has no real economic value. It is proven to be, especially in the last 5 years, about 3 times as volatile as the stock market, while providing pretty lackluster returns, especially recently. A lot of people have gained a lot of attention around these cryptocurrencies because there are a handful of people who made a whole lot of money in the early days of cryptocurrency. Let me tell you how these things usually work. All right, you have these cryptocurrencies that are worth almost nothing, and you have maybe a very small amount of investors come in early when this is very small. And then you'll have this huge run up. At about here, after we've had this huge run up, usually is where you have the vast majority of people coming into the asset. And then usually you have maybe some okay, but highly volatile and usually not very good performance after that. Even though some people did make a lot of money and this chart is pretty compelling, when you're looking forward, chances are this is actually going to end up, again, losing you money instead of making you a billionaire. And similar to meme stocks, there are a lot of people out there who want to sell you on the idea that they are going to find the next Bitcoin. They are going to find the next Ethereum for you, and it's going to go from $1 to 1,000, and that's going to be your ticket out of your job. But again, most of the time what happens is it turns your $1 to 0, and you just end up stuck in the system again worse than you were before. As a small part of a portfolio, cryptocurrency can make sense, but as a get-rich-quick scheme, it just doesn't work for 99.9% of people. Another one that people like to talk about is real estate. And they'll talk about things like flipping, and they'll use huge amounts of leverage or debt to buy these houses or these multifamily units and make tons of money. The two things to understand about real estate is that one, it is difficult, and two, it is a risky asset. The difficult thing, flipping, you can't just buy any fixer-upper and turn it into a flip and make $100,000. If it were that easy, everybody would be doing it. I actually personally know people who have gone into flipping and have gone bankrupt because things didn't go exactly like they planned. You have to be really good at choosing the right property. And if you're not really good at choosing the right property, it can lose you a lot of money because there's a lot of risk where there's a lot of debt. The thing with the stock market is, if I buy a stock for $100 and it goes down to $50, I have lost $50. But I still have $50. And you know, $50 is a whole lot worse than $100, but it's not gonna upend my life. Real estate is extremely risky in the sense that when things go wrong, things go really wrong. If something goes bad in a real estate investment, you don't just lose money, you actually have a pretty decent probability of going bankrupt. And going bankrupt means things like your marriage and relationships are gonna be going through a tough time. You might have your home taken out from under you. Your entire financial life is gonna be upended. You won't be able to get credit from basically anybody for the next 5 to 7 years at any reasonable rate. The risks to your actual lifestyle are real when you are playing with extremely high amounts of leverage in real estate. So acting like real estate is this way to get rich quick, no, it is a great tool for long-term growth and long-term wealth building, but it is a difficult to use and it is a risky asset, especially when used with debt. So when you're being sold on something with real estate, be careful. Don't treat it like a CD where you're getting this guaranteed return out of it, because it's not. Moving on, and these are actually getting into the more controversial takes that I have on this, actually starting a business. Now, of all of these things that we're going to talk about, I would say that starting a business is actually probably the most legitimate of them as far as getting rich quick. It has the highest probability of working, and you have the most control over it. That being said, I know a lot of people who own businesses, and calling it a get-rich-quick scheme is not exactly true. Most of the business owners that I know had a very difficult time getting started up. They put in 60-plus hour weeks, especially at the beginning of their business. There are a lot of people that I know that have failed businesses. So again, it's risky, it's not guaranteed. And similar to real estate, if you took out debt to start your business, failure can mean bankruptcy. The successes that you see, most of the time, don't end up in you being a billionaire, okay? Success is more modest than you think. Now, despite all of these factors, I think that starting a business is a great idea if you have the skills and if you have a validated idea to do so. But acting like you're gonna graduate high school at 18, start a business, and then be a billionaire by age 25 really isn't how it works most of the time. And for most people, waiting until you're 30, 40, 50 and actually have the skills and connections to properly start a business results in a lot higher success rate. So don't think of this as a get-rich-quick scheme, but think of it as a way to leverage your abilities. And if it goes extremely well, yeah, it can get you pretty rich pretty quick. But for most people, it's again about those slow, long-term strategies to build wealth, and starting a business can be one of them. Now, this last one, which is probably the most controversial of them all, is college. The reason that I put this in here, I don't think anybody's expecting to go to college and then instantly be a millionaire when they leave. But what I do see a lot of, especially nowadays, is people going to college and they choose a profession like engineering. They might choose business, especially finance. Computer science is another really popular one. And what they're expecting is to start out of school with these $150,000 plus salaries. And these are the kinds of things that you see in the news headlines, you know. The college graduates working at Google making $200,000 a year, the investment banker in New York City making $100,000 a year plus a massive bonus. These are all the attention-grabbing headlines. But college is only a part of the formula that ends up in you getting this. Going to college and going into a high-paying field is an important part, but if you're not also driven, hardworking, charismatic, and when I say charismatic, I mean your willingness and ability to put yourself out there and network and get to know the right people. If you don't have all of these things too, this $150,000 salary doesn't just appear out of thin air because you went to college. So if you're planning on going to college and just kind of giving it half of the effort, then you're probably going to get less than half of this on your starting salary. So I hope I've convinced you, maybe walked you off a ledge from trying out one of these get-rich-quick schemes. Wealth is something that is built up over a long period of time, and it requires a lot of work. It's hard to get rich, but hopefully now you know what to avoid, and you can check out some of my other videos if you're curious about some of the things that you should be doing to get wealthy. And if you're looking for your own financial planner, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is in the description.